Music is one of my favourite parts of a video game. A great soundtrack can bring an otherwise mediocre game all the way up to the top, and that's no surprise. The goal of a game's soundtrack is to immerse the player and draw them into the game world. In the same way a film will have a score to accompany it, a game will have its soundtrack. However, there's a step further that composers can take when creating tracks for video games, and that's through the use of dynamic music. Dynamic music, also known as adaptive music, has one defining feature. It'll change and adapt to the player's actions in-game. This can be as simple as changing tracks between different areas of the world, just like how typical Zelda games will have different songs for different villages and dungeons, or as complex as layering different instruments together, bringing them in and out depending on the context. A great example of this? It's no secret that I'm a pretty big Nintendo fan, hence the use of their music in almost all of my videos, and Pikmin has a special place in my heart. But what interests me the most now is how the music is handled. Let's take Pikmin 2 as an example. For each major area of the game, there's a basic theme that goes with it. These are normally short loops, only lasting a minute or two in total, nothing particularly special. The interesting part comes in when instruments start being laid on top of this theme. When you're engaged in combat, a heavy drum line will be added over the melody, sounding like this. When a treasure is being carried back to the ship, the music will change again. These changes are also different for every area, making each of them more unique. Going even further than this, there's an entirely different second half of each area's music, just for the sunset period, where the music becomes more relaxing and all other instruments fade away into a calm, almost dreamlike version of the original melody. This is a great example of what's called vertical adaptive music. This is essentially where the orchestration itself will change depending on the context, with things like instruments or tempo being changed throughout the gameplay. Nintendo actually do this a lot, with some other examples being the bongos added to the music when you ride Yoshi in a Mario game, or the increase in tempo of the last lap of a Mario Kart race. However, there is another side to adaptive music in video games. Unsurprisingly, this is called horizontal adaptive music, and this is what I'm really interested in. To understand this, it's important to understand basic musical structure. Songs will typically be written in sections, which are labelled with letters. Let's say the first verse of a song would be labelled as A, the chorus B, and the second verse as C. A basic song structure of verse-chorus would be labelled as A, B, C, B. We can use B twice since the two choruses would be generally identical. And that's it, now you understand basic musical structure. So growing from this, what if we could transition between these different sections based on the context of the game? Boom! Now we have horizontal adaptive music. In its simplest form, this would mean fading between different tracks depending on the context, much like how games like Skyrim handle transitioning between roaming and combat music. However, video game composers can take this one step further. I'm going to use Pikmin as the example again, because God knows I love that game. The Pikmin 2 boss theme, at its core, is a basic loop consisting of brass, string, weird synths, nothing fancy. What makes it fancy is how the music adapts when the boss makes an attack. A normal attack will trigger a short musical hit before easing back into the main loop. When the boss makes a big attack, a short anticipation loop is played before it goes all out for the attack. Fun fact, for those especially perceptive, you'll notice the big attack loop is just all the small attack sounds strung together. Anyway, this isn't where it ends. Pikmin 2 does something even smarter with its adaptive music. In the background, the game is actually counting every beat and bar of the music, and this is for a reason. Obviously, the different sections of music would sound odd if they were out of sync with the main loop, immediately sounding as if they were forced in. Sounds wrong, doesn't it? To avoid this issue, the game doesn't change the section of music playing until the next bar, in which it will then insert the new section perfectly in time with the rest of the music. This system is what really gets me about adaptive music. How games can make it sound like there's a live orchestra playing for you, reacting to your actions in the game world, and it's this feeling of immersion and excitement that I want to carry over into my game, Mowdown. Given even the first level of the game is so expansive, with multiple main and side objectives to complete, an adaptive soundtrack just feels right for the game. For that reason, I began working on the track to be used in the first level of the game. I've decided to split the track into multiple sections, with 3 variations of roaming themes, 3 variations of battle themes, and individual transitions between all of them to increase the fluidity of the music. Now the music is complete, it's time to begin work on the dynamic music system in the game. The basic idea of this is the system will constantly be counting every beat. When that count reaches 4, since my level 1 theme is written in the 4/4 time signature, it will be reset back to 0. The system will also then feature a queue system, in which any change in music, be that from entering or leaving combat, will be sent to the queue as soon as it's called. When the beat counter then reaches 4, the change in the music currently queued will be activated, allowing the change to happen perfectly on beat, and close enough to when it was originally triggered to not feel too delayed. Now that that's all done, here's the final results. And that's it, adaptive music. As both a musician and an avid gamer, the ways video game composers have changed how I view music as a whole is fascinating. I no longer see music in a classical sense, with strict form and structure, following the composer's intended path. Instead, I now see music as something that flows, adapting and changing as it needs to. I think this is a truer reflection of music as a whole, and video games really allow music to shine in its best light. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you learned something in the process. Let me know in the comments if you'd like more videos like this, straying a little from the typical devlog that I release. Also, if you're interested at all in Mowdown and would like to see more of it, check out my previous videos and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next uploads. That's about it for me anyway. See you next time.